There's Sammy Hagar and the Circle. Just this past weekend, they were in town last year for a benefit show at the Agora. It's Sammy Hagar, it's Jason Bonham on the drums, it's Michael Anthony, Sammy's bandmate for a long, long time in Van Halen, and Vic Johnson is the guitar player. And Sammy Hagar and the Circle were asked to, a lot of bands are getting asked to replace Foo Fighters on festivals because Foo Fighters obviously are taking a break after the death of Taylor Hawkins. And so the Beale Street Music Fest goes down in Memphis this past weekend. And so Sammy Hagar and these guys, they were like, we didn't rehearse the song, but, they do a version of My Hero, and it's fun, and everybody. But what I've noticed is I've seen a lot of bands do this where they'll play a Foo Fighters song, but they'll play it acoustically, which I understand gives it a more somber tone, but it's in remembrance of the drummer. So I don't know why these bands covering Foo Fighters aren't out there like... First of all, you got Jason Bonham behind the drums. No scrub by any stretch, right? He's got his dad's DNA through and through. But I don't understand the acoustic Foo Fighters covers. Like, let the drummer do his thing.
Time, yeah, maybe if they didn't have time to really rehearse or anything that could play into it.
Maybe, but these songs, all the guys in this band, they played it well without rehearsing it because they know the chords. And I mean, I'm sure Jason Bonham has heard My Hero 100 times. Any drummer could get behind the drums and play My Hero along. I just think it's really weird because, like I said, there's a lot of bands who are getting asked to sub for Foo Fighters. Foo Fighters had a pretty solid schedule before Taylor Hawkins died, and obviously they've canceled all of them. And so they'll go to Sammy Hagar initially said no. When they asked him, he's like, how the hell are we going to replace Foo Fighters? But then they were like, yeah, of course, let's do this and we'll have fun and whatever. But it's so strange to me that I've seen a handful of, because these always go viral. Oh, band plays tribute to Taylor Hawkins. No, they're not.
Sort of.
They're paying tribute to Pat Smear and Chris Shiflett, but not Taylor Hawkins. I just think it's a weird way to go about it. But the Circle's are great. Sammy Hagar's got half a dozen bands at any given time. The Circle has been the one that I think has been gigging out the most. I got another $1,000 for you in a few minutes if you've been trying to fund yourself. We're only a couple of weeks into that and plenty more to go. So between 9 and 5 every weekday, you get a chance every hour to do that. Somebody wrote me a letter based on a conversation we had last week before Mary left about... He just sent me a weird graveyard story, is what he wrote. I've got a graveyard story I know Mary will like because it's kind of like a I was drawn to it by forces situation.
Ooh, here we go.
And that has become, that's kind of become your area of expertise on the show, is that you're the person who is most likely to have faith in those kinds of things.
Yes.
Right? In otherworldly things. When I grew up, he says, my mom always took me to Cemetary where her parents are and other relatives. She would plant flowers and maintain the stones, and I was really young, so I'd get McDonald's out of it. And it was very nice, and, So my wife and I were at the area of that cemetery that we used to be in, and we were looking around at all the other people, and I saw a statue in the distance, and I just walked over because I thought it looked really interesting. And I walked over and looked at it like you'd look at any other piece of art, and then I looked down at the bottom, and the name was my family's name. And I looked around at the headstones, and I was surrounded by about 5 other ones with my family name on it. And he called his grandmother, and she took out the family tree book.
I have a book?
One of them, some families do. They go all the way back to whatever. Turns out that one of the graves was his great-great-uncle who lived during the Civil War. I thought it was weird because it was something I felt drawn to check out because it was just a cool piece of art, and it turned out to be a relative.
You just stumbled upon it.
Yeah, he said he was drawn to it.
He was drawn to it.
I can't
They
even
like
find
the same kind of art.
Fate.
It's in their blood.
I can't even find my grandmother's grave. I know where she's. I know the graveyard she's buried, but I don't know where.
How big is the graveyard?
It's pretty big.
You wouldn't walk. Nobody in your family knows where your grandmother's buried?
Oh no, my mom knows. But I'm saying
see.
I don't.
You couldn't go visit it.
If you gave me the graveyard, I would search the entire graveyard looking for a grave. I don't know where it is.
I still don't understand. Your mom couldn't tell you where to go in the graveyard?
Yes, I'm saying if something happened to my mom, if my mom was deceased, and
I see.
And I just knew the cemetery that my grandmother was buried in, I wouldn't know where to look. I don't know where to start. Like, the graveyards are a big place.
Is it important enough? Would it be important enough for you to canvass the entire graveyard looking for your grandmother's grave?
Yeah, I mean, my problem is
it's like, kind of.
No, it is. I mean, I remember my grandmother, but the problem is Brown is a very common last name.
Right.
There are thousands in just Northeast Ohio alone.
Sure.
So I don't know. I mean, I know her first name.
But did she have a common first name? Would you know, that's my grandmother, if it said, like, Della Brown?
Yeah, I know.
Do you know her like, birthday and stuff?
She was born 1919, and I think she died in 97. Mm-hmm. And her name's after a flower. Her first name is after a flower.
So Tulip Brown is buried somewhere in that graveyard.
Tulip Brown.
Rhododendron Brown died 1997.
It's actually Poinsettia Brown.
Tiger Lily Brown is in there. I like that too. Poinsettia Brown. Sit your ass right down here and have some lunch under this tree.
But yeah, literally just my grandmother, I think, is the only one we went to actually get a grave for. Everyone else is just plopped somewhere. In the river. Scattered.
In the river.
No one else has a grave. No one else. Our family's poor. Like, we couldn't afford it. But our grandmother was like,
headstones are not cheap.
No, that was the one she had. I remember going to that funeral as a little boy. It was a big, thick oak coffin, like a big one. And then she's the only one we got a gravestone for. The rest of the family, see ya. Y'all dead. Y'all ain't getting any better.
Last Thursday was my the 43rd anniversary of my grandfather dying. I was 8. My mom was 29 years old. And I'll always text my mom on these anniversaries, right? I'll ask her if she's going to go out to the grave or whatever. And my mom will write me these big, long screeds about, because she was very, very close with her dad. And he was an older dad, right? So he was like 77 and my mom was 29. And I just remember my grandfather being very, very sick towards the end and my mom taking care of him and whatever counted as hospice back then. It wasn't even like a hospice thing. It was just like you were going to go home and die because you weren't going to do it in the hospital.
Right.
So it was my mom.
I want to die in my bed.
Right, taking care. And so, when I was talking to my mom last week about it, I was like, that's still, and it kind of, I think of you too, is when I was a kid, when I was 8, my mom could have been 40, 50.
Yeah.
She was 29. That might as well have been 60 years old.
Right.
I don't know anything. But then you become an adult and you go, oh my God, your dad died when you were 29 years old.
Yeah.
That's really young. And you're 30 or however.
Right. Well, my sister and I talked about that. She called me the other day. She was really upset. And that's the thing about grief is that it really does hit you in the most random times. Like when you're completely not expecting it. I mean, outside of the first, 6-8 months a year. She called me and she was like, I was in the store and I saw this old lady. She had to have been 60 and her mom or her dad was probably 100 and they were fighting. And I was like, you get to have a 100-year-old dad and my dad's dead. It's like,
right.
It's one of those where you're like, I'm not mad at the people.
You get to have a 100-year-old
right.
dad.
It's like, stop fighting, You get to have a 100-year-old dad. And it is.
Stop being on the couch, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, knock it off. You're going to make me homeless. But yeah, it is a weird thing when you realize that in your 20s and 30s, even though you are a fully functioning adult with your own kids, you're like, oh, it's still really young to lose a parent.
Sure. And
it's not until you see old people. It happens to me at bingo a lot, where I'll see like some lady and her mom, and I'm like, man, I can't believe the lady's still walking, And it makes me sad, but what are you going to do?
What are you going to do, really?
You're
going to live your life.
It's dead.
Every day like it's your last, because one day it might be. Hey, let me give you some money here. It's $1,000, a chance for you to go fund yourself. So listen closely to each one of these keywords. I hope you win. Good luck.
The Buzzard wants you to go fund yourself and score $1,000. Enter the nationwide keyword WORK at WMMS.com. That's WORK. Enter it now at WMMS.com. And good luck from Buzzard Radio.
Hey, John.
Hey, Alan.
How are you?
Doppelganger cemetery story.
Okay.
Lakeview Cemetery, driving around one day with my wife, go by a statue that I point out that if my beard was longer, would resemble me. And we stop, and she goes back in that direction. I go in another direction, and she starts screaming, "You got to get over here. You got to get over here." And I walk over, and I said, "Please don't say that plaque has my name on it." Sure stuff. It was the not my family, but there's 20 with my last name. Interesting.
That's crazy.
It was scary.
See, that's when you think like that's a pretty specific coincidence. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah, but his name's John.
His first name.
Yeah, all you got. So it's half
I'll
done.
let you be the judge.
Yeah.
I'll let you be the judge if it's my doppelganger or not. So
Okay, well, listen, I'm glad you lived to tell the tale, John.
it was spooky.
There were two
That's
ladies.
how-
There were two ladies in my grief therapy session that I had last summer that you sign up at random, so it's not like they didn't know each other, nothing like that. Both of their moms died. When they got in, they were assigned to the same group, and then they realized that both their moms had the exact same name, first and last name the same. That's pretty crazy.
Poinsettia Brown.
Poinsettia Brown.
That is crazy.
Little things like that. Here's the
Oh
thing.
my
We
God.
talk about like fate or the universe or whatever. Signs like that to me just confirm like right place, right time. Like, oh, you're supposed to be here. You met
Why
this
are
person.
people so utterly terrified of coincidence?
It's not being terrified of coincidence.
It is
it's
avoiding.
just assigning. No,
It is avoiding coincidence at all costs.
It's not avoiding coincidence. You want there to be more meaning out of life.
no.
than just
I
saying,
get everybody
just a
wants.
coincidence.
I get everybody wants there to be. What I'm saying, and I'm not saying there isn't more meaning to life. It's
I like coincidences.
it's whatever you put in. Yeah, coincidences are
And here's the
fun.
thing.
Great, yeah.
There are coincidences. I'm not saying that coincidences don't exist. There are coincidences, but bigger things
Listen,
like
of
that.
course, coincidences exist.
But bigger things like that feel bigger than a coincidence, where you're like, oh, okay, so I randomly decided to go to this grief therapy.
I understand.
That only runs 10 weeks at a time. I'm put in the same group as this woman
You're
whose
talking
mom
about
died
you're
and has
talking
the same name.
about things that have a bigger emotional component to them.
Either emotional component or it's just too many things line up for it to just be coincidence. If you pull up and
But
park
that's
next
the
to
beauty
But
of
that's what makes
coincidences.
coincidences.
No, I think of a coincidence if you're like in line at an amusement park and the lady in front of you in line, you're like, oh, we're both wearing a red shirt today. What a coincidence. Like that's what
But
I
how do you
think
know
of.
that's not fate?
That's because it's not as big. It's not as deep.
Right, but you attach the size of the meaning to it.
If she
You're like, oh my God, she had a red shirt on.
if she had a red shirt on and like lived in the house I grew up
Are we
in,
related?
we might be related.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean things like that. But okay, coincidence. Today I went into the bank, the first time I've been in the bank in Berea, and I was cashing a check, and the lady's like, "Oh, your last name? Oh, I knew your aunt." And it's like, "Oh, cool. What a coincidence. That's me, and that's my aunt." That's like a funny, haha, how weird type of thing.
And that's
But what are the bigger meaning ones? I don't
There's
get the
not
bigger
a bigger
meaning
meaning
ones.
one. Like the two ladies who's both ended up in the same grief therapy session whose mom had the exact same name. They didn't know each other. They weren't related.
It's still just a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. It's like, hey, we're meant to be here. We were meant to meet and go through this grief therapy together.
What were their moms' names?
I don't remember.
See, that's what I'm saying. If it's super common names,
It was like a like
can you
Jackson
believe I met
was last
another
name.
guy whose name was John Smith? I can't believe it. Fate.
Whatever. First and last name from a complete stranger. Come on.
John Smith. Oh my God.
Those are the
Maybe we
bigger
were
things.
meant to fall in love. You ever think about that? Yeah, you could be right. What do I know, right?
Nothing.
I don't know anything. I don't know a goddamn thing. Hey, Kelly.
Hello, hate the show.
Hey, thanks. Is that Kelly with a Y or an I?
Why?
A Y. Okay.
Why?
Yep.
So I was dating a guy back in about 2000, and he took me to a cemetery at night because it has this cool architecture, and I don't know if it's sort of a impress me thing or what. I don't know what it was. So
Means you didn't have any money, Kelly.
him and-
Looking for a cheap date.
well, that was also true, but it was pretty neat. And so he said, "My grandparents are buried here. Take a guess." And I said, "Take a guess." I looked out over the whole cemetery, and in the distance, I just saw this interesting-looking headstone. And I said, "Let's go see if that's it." We go over there, and he goes, "How'd you know that?" And I said, "I have no idea." And it was them, and so we sat there and paid respects and whatever. And
does
a
that
few weeks
cost?
later, he died in a truck accident.
The boyfriend?
And
The
was
guy you were
buried-
dating?
The boyfriend, yeah, and was buried in the spot we were standing on at the time when when we were looking at his grandparents.
Creepy.
Headstone.
That is wild.
So I was a little creeped out. It was pretty crazy.
Did you go to the
Bigger than
funeral?
coincidence.
No, it's all coincidence.
I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but it was very, very disturbing.
Yeah, sure. No, I understand
No,
that.
we
Yeah, disturbing's fine.
We just stood there together alive. So,
Right.
so that's my story.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Are you married now?
Okay. No, I'm not. I'm fine with that.
Are you still grieving the trucker?
I am not. That was 2000, but I did, as I was listening to your show, just pick out a grave for my dad who died over the weekend.
Oh, God. Sorry to hear that.
Interesting story.
Wow. So there's a lot of
As I was listening to you guys.
yeah. So the last couple of days have been very cemetery eccentric, is what you're saying.
Yeah, today specifically, I was listening to the show as I was like, yeah, that looks like the right plot. I think we're going to go with that.
Kelly's
I'm
like, oh, I'll turn Alan on to cheer myself up after a really tough weekend.
It makes me happy. You guys cheer me up.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
So
Now that's fate.
there you go. Fate.
there you go.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. Sorry about your dad. Into each life, a little rain must fall, right?
While we're talking about gravestones and stuff, I got an email from a guy that was from Thursday's show when we were talking about having video screens on headstones. Do you remember that? That they would
Yep.
play a video or a picture or whatever. And I said, I was like, they can't run on electricity because electricity comes from a plug. It would be battery powered. And this guy emailed me and was like, you know that batteries have electricity in them, right? And I was like, no, I did not know.
What did you think were in that?
I honestly have no idea what I thought made batteries run. But to me, batteries and electricity were two completely different
You thought
things.
they were like Tinkerbell and yeah.
I never...
What do you think runs electric cars and
What do
electric
you think
vehicles?
your phone runs on?
A battery, but not electricity.
Wow.
So like when you
What
buy...
do you charge it with?
I got
That's
one of
fine.
the
I
new
get that.
battery-powered cars.
But
No
this is-
electricity, no gas.
This is what I was thinking. Like when you put batteries into a remote, you don't say my remote is running on electricity.
Yeah,
I
you
would
do.
never
You don't
think that.
plug it in, but
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So I've only ever associated like double AAA batteries as their own power source.
Science is a liar sometimes.
And none of you caught that. Nobody called me out on it last week.
I thought you meant like you need a hard line, and like that's like I didn't think you were.
No, I didn't know that batteries had electricity in them.
you
Okay,
thought
so-
you had to run an extension cord from a gravestone.
No, I
Oh.
thought I thought batteries and electricity were
Okay.
different.
Do we need to explain solar power to you?
That's from the sun.
That is
And then it
hence the
becomes-
name.
Mm.
Electricity.
There you
But it's
go.
from the sun.
It's
Batteries aren't
converted.
powered by the sun, though.
No, they store.
Electricity.
Electricity.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. I don't know what I thought batteries were. Again, Mary Santora doesn't ask enough questions. I just was like, oh, batteries have power in them.
But EV cars that have the battery.
I'm not even talking about that.
How are they recharged?
I'm not even talking about that. I'm
You
talking
see
about
people
like
at charging stations.
know.
Where does that charge come
I'm
from?
talking about like AA,
the electricity
AAA,
grid.
These
9
batteries-
volts.
Little batteries.
You
Little
don't
batteries.
understand that there's electricity. Well, there was. This is an old one.
I did not think there was electricity inside that. I didn't know what was in it, but I knew batteries made things work.
This is why she gets mad at magicians.
Because I don't understand electricity.
Because you don't understand electricity, and you're like,
Science is a liar sometimes.
you're like,
be-
magic's real. How do you think remote controls work? They
I
put
can't be the
magic
only
batteries
one.
in there.
I can't be the only one who didn't know that.
Maybe some children.
Oh, no, you are not the only one who didn't know that. You're the only one. I don't even know if you're the only one in this show that didn't know that. Poundcake is
don't know.
suspiciously quiet over there.
didn't
He's
know.
smart. He knows when to shut up. He's not. There's a noticeable absence
Did
of
you
him
know
going,
that?
No.
No, he didn't know
He's
that.
like, no, I haven't been brainwashed by big electricity yet.
Yeah, I thought batteries were their own thing. I didn't know how they were made. But yeah, some guy sent me an email and was like, my jaw hit the floor when you said that it wouldn't be electric, it would be
Shut
battery.
your ass up.
Well, now you know.
Now I know.
Now you know.
And now,
Yeah.
dear listener, you might know too. You might have just learned something new.
There you go.
It's his own thing. Electricity just comes with it.
Right.
It's a part of it.
Yeah. Okay, listen, I've got to take a break here. I got